Hello, my name is Nicole Roberts, and I'm the Community Outreach Coordinator with the St. Petersburg Downtown Partnership and Project Manager of Car Free St. Pete. The Downtown Partnership is a private nonprofit organization that is dedicated to championing community prosperity through purposeful, transformative projects. As our urban center continues to grow, we recognize that it's important to think thoughtfully and holistically about our transportation options. In 1996, we were named Downtown St. Petersburg Transportation's Management Organization, which allowed us to invest in the creation of the St. Petersburg Trolley, which to this day runs the free downtown looper, servicing our most popular downtown destinations daily and providing private charters for special events downtown each year. More recently, we have launched the Car Free St. Pete movement, an initiative designed to encourage locals to go car-free when they're in downtown St. Pete. This is done in partnership with transportation organizations, including the Looper Group, Pinellas Suncoast Transit Authority, the Crossway Ferry, Coast Bike Share, VIO, Razor, St. Pete Pedicab, and most recently, the Southside Greenway. We look forward to working with the next mayor of St. Petersburg to improve our community's options so that it is easier and safer to live, work, and play in St. Pete car-free.
Hi, my name is Bruce Stephenson. I'm a professor at Rollins College, and I'm really honored to share my time with you this evening. What I'd like to do is share my screen and also my experience of studying St. Petersburg for the last 30 years. If you look, you'll see two books, Vision of Eden and John Nolan, Landscape Architect and City Planner. And what I've learned from these two works is that sustainability is key to the future of St. Petersburg and every American city because it forces us to address climate change and structural historic racism, the two existential issues of our time. I started as a city planner for Pinellas County in the late 1970s. And one of the first works that we did is the map on the left. And that shows the areas in Pinellas County that have to evacuate during a hurricane. The first to evacuate and the last to insure, the dark red areas. On your right is the John Nolan plan for St. Petersburg, which we did not know even existed when this plan was put together. And if you look, those dark areas are the areas that Nolan sought to preserve. And sustainability by definition, seeks to limit growth to ensure that development meets the needs of the future without compromising the needs of the present. Also, sustainability is about resilience. If you look at the areas Nolan sought to preserve and compare a Category 5 hurricane hitting St. Petersburg, Tampa Bay, you'll see how intuitive Nolan's knowledge was to protect the human species. But Nolan wasn't just about environmental protection. He was also about profit. And he envisioned St. Petersburg as becoming the bastion of the American Riviera. And if I could briefly look at his plan, you'll see the barrier islands he sought to preserve. And at that time, there were no bridges to the barrier islands because of the frequency of hurricanes. He promoted putting a tram or a streetcar running from the barrier island to a development node right at Boca Ciega Bay. The green is obviously preservation. The yellow is tourist accommodations. And then this purple is what we call today mixed use business. And it's all set on a streetcar line. And what would that look like? Well, that's Nice, France. That was the model that Nolan sought to emulate. And in my view, unfortunately, that did not come into fruition. But it's not a crazy idea because St. Petersburg, the public waterfront we all love, was based on Nice, France. It was an adoption of Nice, France. And also this idea of an American Riviera was structured into the thought of the founding folks of St. Petersburg and defined the 1920s land boom. The other item I want to make sure you understand is that Nolan's plan was what we call today walkable urbanism, that the purple areas that you see were commercial areas that you could walk to get your daily needs. They're all set out on a streetcar line and also on a half mile, as were the parks. And this whole concept of walkable urbanism was folded into equity, that you could not tell where the white neighborhoods and black neighborhoods were. And this is part of Nolan's legacy, that he thought a city was a living organism, and the only way that organism could survive if all parts were adequately invested in. And Nolan's plan was not adopted. In fact, 89% of the people voted against it. And when I first looked at this issue in my first book, I thought it was simply greed, that speculative greed destroyed that. And as you see on the right, there's Uncle Sam. He's looking at Miss Florida, and we can see how enticing Florida was because of the profits to be made. But when I did my second book, I found that the real reason Nolan's plan failed was because of ardent racism. That Nolan's plan to invest equally in the African American communities doomed the plan in an area of racism so intense it's hard to adequately understand. The good point that I think where we are today is that progress has obviously been made. And when you look at the sustainability plan for the city of St. Petersburg, it stresses the issue for racial equity and also the need to provide transportation and what we call multimodal, various forms of transportation. Why is that important? Well, first of all, if you look at areas with poor transportation systems, you have high pedestrian death rates. Orlando's number one, St. Pete, Tampa are number two. And this ties into the graph on the bottom of social equity. And if you look, Orlando has the lowest social equity score in the United States because we arguably have the worst transportation system for lower income folks. And a long story short, an adequate transportation system with a number of choices is the best way to achieve social equity. And I say this because the current book that I've just finished looks at Portland and Orlando. I served on the mayor of Orlando's sustainability task force. In our first meeting, he said, we are going to become the Portland of the Southeast because Portland put together the nation's first sustainability plan. And basically what we did in Orlando was plagiarize Portland's plan. And I stress livability because livability is that concept John Nolan illustrated, how to put places that are walkable, that are livable, and that will also enhance what we call social capital. And to understand this, I moved to Portland, sold my car, and was able to adapt to a streetcar system. Portland's the first city in 50 years to adopt a streetcar. And this was the focus of my book. What was it like to adopt a walkable urbanism lifestyle? And the Pearl District, where I live, is, quote, the best large walkable urban neighborhood located in the core of an American city, focused on the streetcar. But what's fascinating about it, it used to be an unlivable industrial area. If you look at that box on the right is a neighborhood that's been transformed. And perhaps most importantly, in that neighborhood, a third of all housing has to be affordable. And where I'd like to leave you tonight is a piece I wrote for Planning Magazine back in January. And it says, promoting the proximity of people from different classes and incomes has worked in Portland, but can planners transfer that model to more racially diverse cities? Black Lives Matter provides an answer there. As protest turns to policy, restructuring property rights to build pedestrian-scaled, sustainable communities is essential to systematic reform. By harnessing the synergy of social justice and smart planning, cities can build neighborhoods where affordable housing is mandatory, the pedestrian realm is sacrosanct, citizens have a role in governance, and the sidewalk ballet fosters the social capital that elevates community life. And also, I'd like to end by saying the very issues you're looking at tonight, we're looking at Orlando and at Rollins College in particular, where we're hosting a sustainability symposium on this very same issue. Thank you very much.
And we're back on My Mayor, and joining me is candidate Ken Welch. Hello, sir.
Joe, good to be back with you.
How's life on the campaign trail?
Life is great. Mail ballots went out this week, and we're on the final stretch here.
Okay, so let's dig into the questions. So today we're looking at, we're doing things a little bit different as we've been wanting to do over the last few episodes, and we've received some questions for you from some of the groups looking at transportation in the area. And I want to give a special shout out to Charlie Guy. He's been really tirelessly activating the community and meeting with folks and spreading ideas about connecting some of our trails like the Pinellas Trail and the Skyway the trail down near the Skyway, and he's got a website called the Southside Greenway Project, which .org, southsidegreenway.org, which I encourage everyone to check out. So we've got a little intro from those folks. In 2019, Mayor Kreisman and key city staff attended the Bloomberg Harbor City Leadership Initiative, further influencing the development of the St. Petersburg Integrated Sustainability Action Plan. This city vision was based upon utilization of several tools and exercises as part of a business and community engagement process, and it yielded two major issues. Citizens need avenues for equal access to multimodal transportation and affordable housing, and sustainable action across the city must be tied to racial and socioeconomic equity with access to education and employment opportunities. So that's the stage for our first question, or actually first two questions, which come from Jason Mathis, the CEO of the St. Pete Downtown Partnership. He says state and federal dollars are critical funding sources to match local priorities for transportation, mobility, and transit projects. What additional steps can we take to support walkable communities that emphasize all modes of transportation as our urban center continues to evolve?
Well, that's a great question. And, partnership is key to this. I've served on every transportation and planning board in our community, the Pinellas Planning Council, the Metropolitan Planning Organization, the MPO. They were merged to become Forward Pinellas. I served on that board, on TBARTA, on the Tampa Bay Regional Planning Council. So those partnerships are crucial to us moving forward with transportation. The way we got, for example, to the first bus rapid transit system in Tampa Bay is through those kinds of partnerships and pulling down those federal and state funds. That'll be crucial going forward because our CIP is stressed. For FY21, it was a $100 million CIP, and it is stressed. So we can't do this all on our own. Partnerships will be critical. And having multimodal transportation has been a goal of ours for years. And I've worked with folks all across the region, but particularly on our own city council, like Darden Rice and Brandy Gabbard and others who've served on PSTA and Forward Pinellas. And so the plan has always been for integrated multimodal transportation. We've got to get our bus system up to speed. Tampa and St. Pete, Pinellas and Hillsborough counties have two of the most underfunded bus systems in the United States. And as we know, Hillsborough County had a referendum to add a penny. They got challenged in court because of the model. The dollars were not going to an elected body. So they're going back out, I believe, next year for another referendum. At some point, Pinellas will have to do that as well because the bus system is core to your transportation system, and our bus system is just underfunded. That's why it takes an hour and a half for the next bus to come. It's why the buses can't run late at night. So that's a key component, but also making sure that, your bike lanes are real bike lanes and not what I call blinos, bike lanes and name only. And I ride my bike all around the St. Pete and South Pinellas. And if you follow me on Facebook, you'll see the photos and videos that I take. Just painting a stripe on the road does not make it a real usable bike lane. In fact, some of our bike lanes are in such bad shape that it's better for you to drive out of the bike lane because the pavement is so bad. And so we have to focus on that. We have to focus on sidewalks. That's still an issue on places like 22nd Avenue South. And this has been my mantra for years. We've got to have walkable neighborhoods. We don't have a sidewalk that connects, for example, to Thurgood Marshall. And I know there's a plan to get that done pretty soon, but that's been the case for some time. So we've got to make it a priority. We've got to have those partnerships. We've got to pull down grants to support our CIP. And I've worked on this for a long time, and that will definitely be a priority going in.
Thank you. Next, they ask, how would you prioritize creating an interconnected trail system that can be used for recreation and transportation with our new bus rapid transit program?
Well, it's important for connecting to BRT, but it's important to expand our trail systems citywide as well. The trail is a transportation route. If you use our trails, you'll know that folks use that every day, particularly during the pandemic, for stress relief and taking care of your mental health. Having those trails has been such a great asset for our community. As a county commissioner, I strongly supported the Pinellas Trail system and completing that. We're almost there, and the city trail systems that connect to that are a great benefit as well. So whether it's the spur going to downtown St. Pete, and I supported that as a county commissioner, or the Clam Bayou Trail, the Skyway Trail, the new trail that takes you towards the new Bayway Bridge, and that is not as steep as the Dick Meisner Bridge, but that's a nice trail that'll get your blood heart rate up. But we've got those all across the city, and expanding those, the Childs Park Trail. It's a way that we connect and make sure that every part of the city is connected. It's also an economic driver, but it's also really a true transportation tool. And that's always been a priority for me, and it will be as mayor as well. Those trails are part of our infrastructure.
Wonderful. Thank you. Next, we move on to the aforementioned Charlie Guy, who's co-founder of the nonprofit Southside Greenway Corp. And he asks, what modifications and or enhancements would be in your plans for the city to now help better promote and accelerate Deputy Mayor Kanika Tomlin's youth opportunity creation approach by linking healthy biking, physical activities from our schools to our varied supplemental educational enhancement opportunity resources?
Well, I covered some of this in that last question. I think we need to get the basics right. We should have sidewalks that connect all of our communities. We should have sidewalks so that students can safely walk or ride their bikes to our schools. We don't have that in every part of our city. Thurgood Marshall is the example that's on my mind, because both my daughters went to Thurgood. And so I've seen kids walking across the grass as you move on the north side of 22nd Avenue South. There are big gaps where there isn't a sidewalk. And so we need to address that. I know it's been in the plan, and there have been some CIP issues over the years, but this just needs to get done. And also making sure that we have bike lanes that are bona fide bike lanes with smooth pavement that can actually be utilized and don't really create a hazard. When there's a stripe on the road, it looks like a bike lane, but the pavement is so bad that folks, bicyclists, go out into the regular lane. That's an accident waiting to happen. So we need to get those bike lanes in good condition citywide. There are places where the bike lanes just stop, and we need to make sure that's a priority going forward. Expansion of those trails and connection of those trails is vitally important, but I want to get the basics right. Let's get sidewalks in every neighborhood, connecting to every school. Let's make sure our bike lanes are in good shape, and let's make sure that our approach makes practical sense. One of the issues that I strongly support is complete streets, but the way that's laid out needs to make practical sense. We had some issues on the MLK complete streets issue, but again, 22nd Avenue South is a good example where staff over the years wanted to do a road diet there and bring that down to 3 lanes. Now, that's a major connector between I-275 and the beaches. Again, a major school, Thurgood Marshall, is on that roadway. And being a parent who sat in the car lanes when school is starting and ending, I just know that 3 lanes would not work there. So I've expressed my opposition to that and was able to stop that from moving forward over the years. But it's just having that kind of practical sense, connecting with the community, and then laying out a plan that makes sense, whether it's complete streets or bike lanes or connecting our trails.
By the way, the car lane is the perfect time to listen to the St. Pete X podcast. It makes the time go really quick.
It is, absolutely.
So Beatrice Farrell, Executive Director of the Deuces, has our next question. She starts by saying both finalist redevelopment plans for the Tropicana Field property proposed backloaded timetables with vaguely specified integration plans with the existing launched Warehouse Arts District, Deuces Joint Action Plan. And this Southside St. Pete plan, community designed and now partially funded with both city and private organizational assistance, deserves more timely near-time improvements with accelerated financial support. If elected mayor, what definitive steps would you take to accelerate the completion of this excellent existing community-initiated plan?
It is an excellent plan, and thank you, Beatrice, for it. I went through it again last night. It comes down to priorities. It comes down to coordination and timing. The plan that I reviewed last night was from 2018, and it's a $23 million plan. Now, I'm on the Deuces every day, so I know that these plans are exciting, whether it's the street scaping or the facade improvements, the connections, the trails, the sidewalk improvements. They all make sense. I want to make sure, number one, they're coordinated with the coming developments, whether it's Sankofa or Tangerine Plaza. or the IMIX development, so that we're not duplicating efforts. But I also believe it's a funding issue. And so where do we find those dollars to be able to move that up? Our CIP is stressed. One of the things that I want to look at is that $9 million a year that's being allocated for the first time from the penny for Pinellas to our water system. Again, getting our water system up to speed, whether it's stormwater, sewer, potable, is a priority. But I want to look for other ways to fund that, whether it's the upcoming infrastructure bill or other ways to take the relief off our CIP so that we can fund projects like the water deuces plan in a more timely basis. We don't want to wait another 10 years to get this done. It's a great plan. It's long overdue. I'm on the deuces every day. I know what needs to happen there. And so that'll be a priority, but it comes down to being able to bring in other resources to relieve some of the stress on our CIP.
Thank you. All right, now we're looking for a question from Bill Nesper, who's the executive director of the League of American Bicyclists, a Florida connection. He's actually in DC, but has there's some local connections. So we included this question. He says, we at the League have been proud to recognize the progress on the ground here in St. Pete with a silver level bicycle friendly community award to St. Petersburg and are excited by the progress we've seen. During the pandemic, we've seen unprecedented growth in new people bicycling, as you mentioned, from families to first responders. The pandemic also highlighted the health disparities and racial inequities that exist in our communities. When bicycling isn't a safe option, it further exacerbates systemic inequalities in the health and well-being of those who stand to benefit most. If elected mayor, what steps would you take to make bicycling, walking, or other multimodal transit options even more accessible for all people in St. Pete?
Great question. As I said, I'm a bicyclist. I've noted some of my adventures on Facebook. If you're a friend, or you can just pull me up and see. I've got a whole album called Bicycle Pics, and it goes back to when we created the overpass near Gibbs High to trips around the city. We've got a great trail connection that is great for bicycling, and also, I think for the most part we do a very good job with our bike lanes on streets. I want to make sure that we take a look at all of our bike lanes, as I said, make sure they're all up to speed, that they're not blinos, that, bicycle lanes in name only, and expand that access where we see gaps in the connection between bike lanes around the city. I think we also need to make sure that we communicate with the public so they understand the rights of bicyclists. There's a thing called sharrows, which is supposed to let you know you're supposed to share the lane with the bicyclists. It's a bicycle diagram in the middle of the lane. A lot of folks don't know that's what that means. And so they might be surprised to see someone on a bicycle in the middle of what most people think is a lane for cars. But that is actually a part of our transportation plan, those sharrows, those shared lanes. And so we need to make sure folks understand that. I'm starting to see more folks use those lanes in that way, but it's got to be a public information campaign to let folks know, share the road. Here's what you do when you're coming up on bicycles, for example. Give them a couple of feet if you can. Don't ride right next to them. And so it's just that kind of public engagement to make sure folks understand that bicycles are a part of transportation. They have certain rights and certain obligations. It kills me when I see a bicyclist just blow through a stop sign or through a stoplight. We have obligations as well. And so I want to move forward with that kind of public education, make sure we've got all the road surfaces, all the bike lanes up to date, and move forward together. But bicycling in St. Pete is a no-brainer, and it needs to be embedded in our culture and understanding.
Thank you. Final question is from Esther Eugene, the executive director of the St. Petersburg branch of the NAACP, and it's a funding-specific question. And she says, as you are now campaigning becomes the city's next mayor, will you publicly encourage Mayor Kreisman to now set aside a specific 2021 funding amount from St. Pete's $45 million share of the American Rescue Plan Act for a Southside St. Pete community-specific true multimodal transportation plan?
I think that's a great idea. I think we do need to have a plan that specifically addresses some of the disparities we see in the South Side. I think the city's done a good job in, for example, the Childs Park connection to the trail is a great addition. the connection at Clam Bayou that runs behind the post office on 22nd Avenue South. Again, a great addition. It kind of takes care of some of the issues with the lack of sidewalks, the old sidewalks, the dilapidated sidewalks on 22nd Avenue South. So they created the trail as an alternative route to get to Gulfport and back. So, but I would like to see a more comprehensive plan. Whether we pull dollars from the American Rescue Plan, it is a different question. My priority for those dollars is housing. Housing is our imminent issue that we need to deal with. And there's a need for $20 million to replace the linkage fees that really can't be used in Mayor Kreisman's housing plan. So I'd like to use that $20 million for that. And I think most of the feedback that came from the community conversations and feedback was that housing should be the priority. So I think we can do both. I would like to see that expanded plan for transportation in South St. Pete. But I would my first priority for those funds from the American Rescue Plan is housing.
Wonderful. Ken Welch, we appreciate
All
your
right.
time. Thanks for joining us.
Always a pleasure. We'll see you next time, Joe.